I met Stan Bergman on December 9th, 1990 in New York City. It was a family celebration of a mutual friend, and we got talking about the dental supply business in Canada. I told him I knew nothing about that business, but knew in general how to run a distribution business. Stan moves fast. A little more than a month later, I reported to work at the then head office of Henry Schein Inc. in Port Washington, New York. I thought that for sure it would take at least 18 months to establish Henry Schein Canada. Stan challenged me to get the job done by Canada Day, July 1st, in under 1/3 of the time I had previously thought possible. Needless to say, Henry Schein Canada opened for business July 1st, 1991. I can still hear the voice of Jimmy Bryslawski, also mentored by Stan, and now president and COO of Henry Schein, saying, "We can do anything, but we can't do everything." My first of many lessons learned at Henry Schein. We could do anything, but we had better be sure it was our highest and best conviction plan and the finest uses of our resources, because it would likely preclude us from doing something else. Stan is a visionary with laser-like focus on achieving the highest and best use of available resources, while enriching the lives of those he has chosen for the mission, exceeding customers' expectations, and operating at the highest level of integrity, performance, and ethical standards. The results speak for themselves. Very few people can lay claim to having done twice as well as Warren Buffett, and Stanley Bergman is one of them. Since taking the company public in 1995, Stan and his team have produced a 1,700% plus return for investors, considerably more than double the performance of Berkshire Hathaway. Stan is the chairman and CEO of Henry Schein, a Fortune 500 company, and the world's largest provider of healthcare products and services to office-based dental, animal health, and medical practitioners, with nearly 19,000 Team Schein members and operations or affiliates in 33 countries. Henry Schein is a member of the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 indexes. In 2015, the company's sales reached a record of $10.6 billion. By the way, there were 200 million when I joined in 1991. Henry Schein has been a Fortune World's Most Admired Company for 15 consecutive years and is ranked #1 in its industry on the Fortune 2016 World Most Admired Companies list. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Stanley Bergman to the stage. Forget, I'm actually going to be here. Okay, Stan. I've been warned that you like to get waylaid in your answers. So,
just I told you that?
Yeah. Okay. Some of your good assistants.
Oh, boy.
So, love to chat about all sorts of catching up, but we've got 7 questions, and I'm told I've got to get answers from you. So, here we go. Can you please share a bit about your personal story and how your upbringing in South Africa has shaped who you are today?
Thank you, Ian. It's good to be here with you. And that was a bit of an embarrassing introduction, but not for now. We'll argue about it later. So, as you can tell, I speak funny like Ian. I grew up in a place called Port Elizabeth, South Africa. My father had a store in a place called South End. There were 2 communities in South Africa that were totally multi-racial, and that towards the 70s, the apartheid government decided these were sores and they had to break them up. One was District 6, for those of you who've been to Cape Town, and then there's Port Elizabeth, South End. It was a vibrant community. My father had the store. He was referred to as the unofficial mayor of this community. And that's where I learned everything. It was all about people. It was all about developing relationships with others. He didn't call them strategic partnerships. That's what we would call them today. And it was a community where I understood clearly that if you give back to the community, you get back more, and that there's a relationship that businesses can have with the community. And therein lies a lot of what I learned and brought to Henry Schein.
Great. Can you please provide us with a short overview of Henry Schein for those who do not know the company well?
Sure. Yeah. So you heard the introduction from Ian. We're a business that's focused on office-based healthcare practitioners. That is, dentists in their private practice and in large group practices with the government, physicians, and companion animal veterinarians. So what's in common with all of these professions? They are all largely in the private sector in the developed world. The vast majority of the practitioners are operating in what's called SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. They all go to school, medical school, dental school, veterinary school, to learn a profession, and then one day somebody gives them the key and says, you're now running a small business. And we have 1 million of those customers, about 1.5 million practitioners, and our goal is to help these practitioners operate a better business, a better enterprise, so that they, in fact, have the resources to provide excellent clinical care. And in that connection, we sell them all the supplies, all the equipment, the software, we'll finance the practice, and the way we drive business is through our 4,000, what we call field sales consultants around the world, who are skilled in practice management. They go in to meet with the practitioner, talk to the practitioner on how to operate better financial systems, better human resource management, marketing, all the things that you would see in any business. That's what our field sales consultants do. They're connected to a telesales organization, tremendous database. We have probably more information on this marketplace than anyone else in the world. And we use that database to drive sales, e-commerce, and the consulting. The bottom line is it's about helping our customers succeed. And if we help do that well, which we do, the customer gives us the business.
I'm just wondering how you hire and manage 4,000 business advisors worldwide. Pretty amazing.
Impossible, but we do it.
Yeah, it is. So
we want them to have an independent view.
Right,
and
absolutely.
They do.
And they have to have the personality, and they have to have
right. And by the way, I want to recognize Cy Elban, our Canadian manager, several generations after you started the business,
right,
has led the business here very successfully for more than a decade, and created the biggest Canadian version of Henry Schein, the duplicate of Henry Schein, the biggest distributor of dental products in this country.
How do your culture and values drive competitive advantage?
So we view ourselves as what has been called a higher ambitions company. Higher ambitions companies, and there's a lot of literature that was first written about higher ambition companies at the Harvard Business School, are companies that follow the logic of Ben Franklin, came up with the concept 200 years ago, enlightened self-interest. If you do the right thing for society, by doing good for society, you can do well as a business. The notion of engagement in the communities, and in our case with our profession, and the world, is not only reserved for the NGO community, but if companies are engaged in the appropriate way with public-private partnerships, you can drive shareholder value. So, we believe in a strong value system, talk about that in a minute, that drives a culture. The culture, of course, has to adapt to an environment. As the company grows, the culture has to grow. As technology grows, the world moves, culture has to change, but the values remain constant. And our values are related to the way in which we manage our 5 constituents. I think every business has constituents that you have to balance. Every organization, whether it's a university, a hospital, whatever, an NGO, has constituents. And in our case, the 5 are our suppliers, as number 1. We want to, not in any priority, but it starts with our suppliers. We want to say to our suppliers, the best way to bring your products to market is through Henry Schein. We want you to really do well with us. Of course, work with our competition. We expect good terms, but we want you really to succeed when you put your money to work at Henry Schein. Then there's our customers. Of course, we want the business, and as I described earlier on, what we want to do is help our customers be very, very successful. The more successful our customers are, the more they turn to us as their trusted advisor, the more business in the end they will give us without us having to ask. And bringing our suppliers and our customers together is what we call Team Schein. Ian used the term early on. It's an environment where it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is. What counts is the contribution to making Henry Schein successful. We expect our team members to be committed to the company, to be committed to each other in a way that makes the environment just a bit nicer a place to work than perhaps in another business. And we give people an opportunity that may not have that opportunity elsewhere. We have very many senior managers at Henry Schein that started out in the warehouse, in an entry position in telesales or in an administrative position. The key is how these managers relate to each other and to our constituents and our customers, including our customers. The 4th constituency is our investors. And we are very clear, and have been clear with the investor community from day one. We've been public for 21 years, company's 84 years old, that Henry Schein does not exist for our investors. We commit to providing our investors with a steady investment. I'm not sure a return on capital. I'm not sure that we are amongst the highest providers. In fact, we are not, of return on capital, but it's consistency that's important. And so we are committed to ensuring that we provide our investors with a consistent rate of return. And for the past 21 years since we've been a public company, that rate of return has been in excess of 21% in appreciation in the stock. But we also remind our investors that they are important, but one of 5 constituents, because there are these 5 stakeholders that are required to make the company successful. And the 5th, Ian, is our commitment to society. Heavily committed to the professions we serve, heavily committed to the communities we're in, but also very much committed to providing access to care around the world, specifically in oral care and in emergency response to disaster. The 5 constituents working together creates our value system. This, in turn, creates trust. This, in turn, encourages the 5 constituents to work with us and is the biggest enabler of change. We're a company that believes in driving change. We advance change management in our organization, and in fact, we have a goal of reinventing the company every 3 to 4 years. You cannot have change and rapid change without having great trust. It's the management of the 5 constituents, the values that drive the change and enable us at the same time to adapt the culture as we grow and as the world around us changes.
Can you provide us with some concrete examples of how you do this? How has Henry Schein sought to innovate in the realm of corporate social responsibility, and how does this relate to your higher ambition model that you described?
Right. That's a good question, Ian. So, I don't think you have the same issue here, but in the US, only half the population has access to oral care, to dental care. And it's a real big issue. under healthcare reform, children are now being given modified access, or probably there's reimbursement, not at the greatest rate. Dentists are not so excited about taking on the lower income children, for example, as patients. And in fact, it's very hard, very often, to find a dentist in lower income communities. So it's a challenge. We developed a partnership with the American Dental Association where on a given weekend in February each year, we work with the ADA, with their dentists and their auxiliaries, hygienists and dental assistants. It involves about 35,000, 40,000 people out of 2,000 locations, providing oral care to several 100,000 children each year. It is the perfect enlightened self-interest program. It's the right thing for society. It gives our dentists, customers, and the dentists in general, even if they're not customers, the ability to provide social outreach work because they have a platform. And at the same time, it puts us in a very unique position because our team is working shoulder to shoulder with the dentist doing good. So the next time our team member shows up at a dentist's office, it's a completely different relationship to perhaps that of our competition. You can't do these programs just because you want PR or because you want to get your name in the paper or have a relationship with a better relationship with the customer. You have to do these programs and design these programs because they actually are in the interest of society as well. So that's one example. I'll give you a program, another one on the dental side that actually involves Canadians. There is a dental fraternity, Alpha Omega. It happens to be a Jewish dental fraternity. And we were approached by the White House. There are several thousand Holocaust survivors in the United States and in Canada who cannot access dental care. So we put a program together with the White House and through the Public-Private Partnership Initiative and Alpha Omega, and are providing dental care to, in this case, several hundred Holocaust survivors in Canada and in the US. Similar concept. We are now working with our customers and making a difference in society. On the animal health side, we, for example, have a program where we, together with the veterinarians, provide services to companion dog breeders and organizations that train these dogs. There's obviously a huge demand for these dogs, but there's a limitation in resources. We work with the dentists, with the veterinarians in this case, and the breeders. And we have hundreds of these programs, perhaps, and we try to get them right in the community. It's a part of Henry Schein, and it's throughout the world. We have 400 and something locations around the world, and each one of our locations is involved in one way or another. And then through the World Economic Forum, we have advanced a program on emergency response. Believe it or not, today, there still is not, or there wasn't until a few years ago, a list of key products that had to be made available in response to an emergency, an earthquake, or in the case of Ebola a year or two ago, there just wasn't a list of products and a knowledge of where to find these products right away to get them to the right part of the world. So for example, in West Africa, it took about 3 or 4 weeks before we got the basic cleaning solutions there. So we used this as an example and worked together with several other companies to make sure that we now have, and the World Food Program, who administered the program, to ensure that we have a list of the key items that need to be made available right away in response to an emergency. And very often it's the basic hygiene products. It puts us in contact with customers and with our suppliers, and that's another example of enlightened self-interest. And I'll be happy to give more, but I think that's enough.
That's great. You published an article on LinkedIn influencers entitled Camp Counselors as Great Corporate Leaders. As one of the longest-serving CEOs in the Fortune 500, what are some of the leadership lessons you've learned? Or maybe I should say you've taught.
Well, you asked early on about South Africa. I spent my early days in a youth movement in South Africa, and it was a summer camp, amongst other things that were run through this movement. And it was there that I learned that, and many people say Henry Schein is just a big summer camp, that it's really all about engaging people. You cannot tell people what to do. It doesn't work. Of course, maybe you could do that 50 years ago, but in today's world, people have to be motivated and have to want to work with each other. And we tell our senior management, we tell our leaders that when they join the company, we bring people in, by the way, sometimes because we've grown rapidly at very senior very senior levels, and we, of course, bring in younger people and develop their careers at Schein. And we always talk about the notion that in order to succeed, you have to be like a camp counselor and get everybody engaged. And we talk at Henry Schein about the keys to management. It's about coaching, facilitating, and mentoring. With those three concepts, there's not much that can't be done. It's not about being the big boss. There's no room for the big boss, at least I think in our company, but also I believe in general in the year 2016. Certainly not with the millennials. No one wants to respond to instructions. People relate well to coaches, people that facilitate making things happen, and people that are mentors. And so our culture is a culture of the camp counselor who drives coaching, facilitating, and mentoring. And I believe that is something that is deep in our DNA. It is, to some extent, or to a large extent, something that our founders actually believed in. We perhaps in the last 30 years codified this. But for example, Henry himself used to work in the warehouse as a picker. That's what he did, and as a checker. And his wife ran the receivables. And so it's about being engaged on an industrial or scale basis.
No, I can attest to that. What are the primary risks and opportunities concerning your company's culture and values?
I would say the primary risk, which I'm not worried about, is maintaining the culture and scaling it up and adapting the culture to the environment we're in. When I joined Henry Schein, there were 142 people. I knew everyone in the company, down to the 142nd. Of course, we have 19,000 people today. It's very different. We can have people that are in the same building that will never meet each other. We have people that come to us through acquisitions. How do you keep the same value system in place? How do you adapt the culture? Of course, we're in a world now of e-commerce, of digitalization. In many respects, we have more knowledge available to ourselves now at a moment's second's notice, but at the same time, there are opportunities for, or situations where the human touch is lost. It was bad with voicemail, when I'm sure you got a few from me, but it's even worse now with this environment that we're in now on digitalization, of digitalization. So the question is how to keep this culture going with the world changing around us. I would say that's all we have to do, because if we do that, we'll keep the creativity, the innovation coming, and we'll execute well. And I would say that that's at the heart of our risk, but also on the opportunity side. Of course, the key is to have enough management that believes in this culture and has the DNA. And so that's what we spend at Schein a lot of time on. So it's how do you keep this culture in place that we need to focus on. And I think if we do that, we will continue to do very, very well. And I think we will do that. Henry
Schein generates significant free cash flow from operations each year. How do you put those resources to work and in your long-term growth strategy?
Right, so we generate a lot of cash, Ian, and we use the cash three ways, roughly a third. A third we use to buy back stock. A third we use to invest in the business, but the business generates a lot of cash. We have some debt, and we do get some criticism that we're not leveraging the company enough, especially in this environment of low interest rates. And a third we use to invest in new businesses. And the new businesses acquisitions fall into a number of categories. On the one side, we're looking for businesses that are like. So another distributor that may sell the same products, and we can vertically integrate, we can integrate completely, not vertically, completely integrate. And those are good acquisitions for us. Then there are investments we make in extending the product line. So generally, by the way, we're not a manufacturer. We do not want to compete with our manufacturers. But there are certain products we actually invest on the manufacturing side, specifically on the dental specialty side. These are products that are generally sold direct by manufacturers. And so in that context, we are fine investing in those areas. Dental implants, orthodontic products, endodontic products. We manufacture certain food supplements, etc., on the animal health side. We have a manufacturer of a product that is in the digital medical field, in the video relationship with dentist environment. So we have other businesses that allow us to provide, that we will invest in, that allow us to invest in, provide a vehicle to invest in value-added services, software businesses, financial services businesses, businesses that buy and sell practices. So we're looking for geographic expansion, we're looking for product expansion, and we're looking to add like businesses to the platform. I might add quickly that we usually will not enter a new market through 100% acquisition. We'll usually buy anywhere above 50% interest in a business and then buy the rest over time. This gives us an opportunity to work with a partner that is invested with us. And so quite a bit of Henry Schein's business, about today 25% of our business is in joint ventures where we own less than 100% of the business. And so we put our capital to work in these three areas: buying stock back, investing in the business, and inorganic growth investments.
I usually like to listen to your quarterly investor call. I couldn't get to this morning, so I'm just wondering if you could give me a quick recap on how things are going.
You want the investor call today? Well, it's interesting. During the second quarter, we had softness in one of our businesses. We grew, but it was not the growth rate on the dental consumer side in North America that I guess the market had grown accustomed to. And for whatever reason, this was not only related to us. We called it perhaps earlier than our competition or the manufacturers, the other public companies. And so people were very worried about what's going on in the market. So a lot of the call was devoted to what's happening in the market. We just couldn't explain it in the second quarter. For whatever reason, the market was not as robust as in previous quarters in the dental marketplace. So we spent a lot of time on that. And the usual questions about, tell us about the future. And of course, we don't know the future, but we feel no one knows, of course, where the world is going, but exactly whether it's economics or geopolitical. And there's lots of questions around that. But we did have a pretty solid quarter. We reaffirmed our guidance for the full year of 2016 and reaffirmed and provided guidance for 2017, all providing on average around 10% EPS growth, which is what we've been guiding to for quite a while now.
So we can expect the stock to go up tomorrow, maybe today.
I don't know, I can't predict the future, but it did go up this morning.
That's good.
It's still going. Well, it did go up until 40 minutes ago.
Fortunately, when I started Prime Quadrant, to diversify my portfolio, I didn't sell all my Henry Schein stock. It's,
Well, I wouldn't argue with you, Ian, because of your clients here, but it's important to diversify. And the worst decisions I've ever made as a result of advisors who tell me to sell my Henry Schein shares to diversify.
well, we heard from a couple of people this morning, and the indication is if you have a beautiful egg and you watch it very carefully, that's your nest egg, it's also good. So
You need diversification. At least I'm told you need diversification, and I listen to advisors like you.
So we have 1 minute and 23 seconds left. Stan, tell us some of your wisest thoughts and help us to have a better life and do better in the world.
Boy, all in 1 minute.
Yeah. Well, more than that, you could get into trouble. So.
I would bear one word in mind, balance. And you actually do it quite well. I've mentioned to you in our Henry Schein environment, we balance the 5 constituents, and that's helped us. But I think in life, there's got to be balance. Obviously, the biggest priority is family, then there's career, and you've got to balance with something else. Some people view it as religion, others view it as social responsibility, and I would submit that one always gets more out of social responsibility, engagement in society, engagement in community than one puts in. And I think the third category, you should include things like whatever, as my ski instructor tells me, floats your boat. I like the opera, I like skiing, and I like being involved in community service. So you have to balance, I think, the 3: business, family number 1, business, and there's something else in life.
You haven't changed a bit. It's really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.